Hello! Welcome to day 4 of our Ellie and Mac Duchess coat sew along. I'm really excited because today we're going to be putting the coat together. We're going to be attaching the liner and putting the color on and basically have a finished coat. We just have to add the belt and the buttons tomorrow and we're done. I'm really excited. Confession time though. I had to seam rip the skirt on the lining twice because I was not paying attention when I was attaching it. And I about lost my cool. I was almost like, that's it, I'm done. I'm not sewing this anymore. But it was complete user error, but still very frustrating. And then I had to go out and buy interfacing because I've had the same bit of interfacing for years, literally years. I bought probably like 5 or 6 yards of it, maybe 10, I don't know. Probably 5 or 6 yards, 4 or 5 yards, anyways, of interfacing when I first started sewing clothes back when my oldest was just a wee babe, and I haven't used it. And I was like, oh, this will last me forever. But then between the Deck the Halls event and everything else that we've been doing that needs interfacing, I finally used it up and needed to buy more interfacing. And I was just like, the world of interfacing has completely changed since I bought some. Oh, crazy. Anyways, let's just get right in. I'm a tad bit nervous about attaching the lining because before, when I've attached linings, I've twisted the arm around and then you can't get your hand in, and it was so frustrating. So I know to keep an eye on that this time to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we are going to cross our fingers that it all goes well. I'm sure it will. Everything else, other than having to seam rip the skirt a couple of times, everything else has gone awesome. A lot better than I expected. I think it's nice when we break things up in little pieces because then we can see it in a smaller, like we have smaller goals to achieve every time instead of like, okay, I'm going to sit down and make this jacket, and it's overwhelming. So I really like this style of sewing, the sew-alongs and whatnot. So first thing we're going to do is add this here. All right, so we need to make our collar piece. So to do that, if you haven't already, make sure you put interfacing on the wrong side of your outer collar piece. And then what we need to do is we need to put our collar pieces right sides together. And we're going to sew along a short end around the curved part and then down the other short end here. So up, around the curve, and down. Okay. If you are using a regular sewing machine, before I said use a stretch stitch, but I guess I would only use a stretch or zigzag or lightning stitch if you are using fabric that's got some stretch to it. But if it doesn't, then I wouldn't worry about it too much. A straight stitch should be okay. I would still probably, if you do a straight stitch, I would still go back through and do a zigzag stitch to reinforce those seams. But if it were me, I'd probably still do a stretch stitch just because putting it on and off, it's going to have a lot of tension on those seams. So having them be able to move a little bit without popping would be good. 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's sew down. If you're using, you can just follow that curve around, but I'm going to try and be a little bit more. Good, looks like got it all. Now just this last little bit, my piece has gotten bigger than my other piece, so we'll just slowly cut. Perfect. All right, so now that our collar is sewn shut, If you used a regular sewing machine, you're going to want to use like pinking shears to cut your seam allowances because you don't want it to fray. And then we just need to turn our collar around, right sides out. And then we're going to press it so that it's got a nice, crisp seam to it. So we just want it to be nice and clean and crisp. So yeah, needless to say, after seam ripping the skirt twice, I was like, yeah, I need a little break. So we're back at it today with a new attitude, which always helps. So, and I 100%, like, it was my fault. I was not paying attention. I should have marked my fabric. It's just mirror imaging things just kind of blow my mind sometimes. Trying to remember to get it exactly mirror imaged. Okay. So now that we've got that, we're just going to top stitch around the collar here. I don't know. I think I'll just use my cover stitch machine. That's okay. Right. So I'm going to use my leader cloth. Oh, there goes a clip. So yeah, if you see me use this, this is just a leader cloth. I use it to start my cover stitch seams so that they connect before I try and get them on my fabric, because sometimes if I just start right on my fabric, the stitches won't actually connect until like up here a little ways, and I want it nice and close right at the bottom there. So just kind of cover stitch right along the edge. Okay. Sometimes when it makes that little sneezing noise, I'm worried that I didn't flip the one thing back up. But just cover stitching all the way down. And what that's going to do is that's just going to help that fabric not slide around. So on your collar, your lining won't slip out. Okay, so we're going to lift the pressure foot, make sure our needles are up, pull our threads forward, snip them, and then lock them there in the back. And our collar piece is done. Oh, I love Emmy. I love Emmy so much. It's so cute. I've not used the striped Emmy before, so I'm really excited about this. Okay, so now what we need to do, pardon my reach, let's grab the instructions back up. Okay, if you haven't stay stitched the bodice, do that. We did it yesterday. So hopefully you did it with me yesterday. It's just going to help it prevent it from stretching while you're trying to add the collar. So pin the collar to the right side of the bodice. All right, so this thing is massive. Like, I am so excited for this. Okay, so we need to pin it right sides together. A 1/4 inch from the side, because here we wanted it a 1/4 inch because when we attach it, or when we it's got to have a 1/4 inch there because we don't want this to be folded into it. Hopefully those sentences just made sense because I'm not sure that they did. But so we just want to start it at a 1/4 inch. It's so that we have the seam allowance. There we go. Words. Sometimes they come to me. So we're going to attach it at a 1/4 inch there. And then we need it a 1/4 inch here. Okay. Continue pinning so that everything lines up. I feel like this collar piece is a lot bigger, or is a lot smaller than my neck. But let's see. I usually don't pin, but because I'm worried that this length isn't correct, I'm going to pin. Sorry. I'm a puppy wet person today, I guess. All right. It's actually pretty close, a lot closer than I thought it would be. Not bad. Awesome. Okay. So now it says baste in place if desired. I'm going to baste it with my serger. Oh, I'm gonna throw my rulers around. No big deal. I'm gonna baste it with my serger. Just like barely touch it. I'm not gonna turn the knives off because turning the knives off on this one are a little different than my other one, but we'll make sure that we don't cut anything. Okay. Usually if something says baste, I'm like, I don't even baste a turkey, so I think I'm okay. But I've learned that if they put it in the instructions, it's probably for a pretty good reason. Yeah, you really want to make sure to put that stay stitch in because your bodice is going to want to stretch, and because you have the interfacing in, your collar can't stretch. So that stay stitch is that a lot. Okay, so we basted that in. Now we need to place the bodice liner so that the right sides are together, and it's going to, so our collar will be sandwiched in between our outer fabric and our liner fabric. So make sure your seams on your liner are pointing up at you. And let's get this lined up here. Okay, those seams should line up in the back. So. All right. My collar's a little short. I think it'll be okay. So the collar is sandwiched in between. So here we have the outer. In between is our collar piece. And then we have our liner with the seams up. So it's right sides together. Okay. So now we're just going to sew along there, and that's going to start to attach our liner. Okay. Oh, sorry. This thing is a beast. It's so huge. I love it. I love it. I'm so excited about this. Okay, so we're just going to do 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're just, if you haven't basted your collar, you're going to want to make sure that it's in that seam and it's not sliding around. So I do recommend basting it. I do think that that's probably a good tip from the designer. I'm going to try and sew this without completely blocking the camera view, the phone camera. And now we have officially started attaching our liner and our bodice, or our liner and our outer fabrics together. So they should be nice and attached here at the collar. I'm just going to check to make sure that my collar pieces are all fully attached, that I didn't miss anything, because I am famous for that. But yay! Binding it, or not binding it, threads everywhere. See, I told you I'm like squirrel. Basting it on helped a lot. That was an awesome thing. Like I said, I know when they recommend it that it's a good thing to do, but sometimes I'm just like, oh, I don't want to. All right. So place the jacket liner and jacket outer right sides together, which they should be right sides together already from our attaching of the collar. Now what we need to do is we need to sew all the way around the jacket. So around the front sides, because we already attached the collar, so we don't need to worry about the neck. But we need to sew down the front, around the skirt, and back up the front on the other side. We also need to leave a pretty good space for turning, 2 to 4 inches. Because this is a really big, heavy jacket, I'm going to leave a good 4 inches so that I can get in there and make sure I can turn it without ripping anything. Like, there's words in there somewhere. They have it marked on the side to turn it. I think I'm actually going to turn it from the bottom, because then when we have to go to close it up, I have a little bit more leeway with how that looks, because it's on the bottom and it's not going to create extra bulk for the buttons. So this is probably more than 4 inches, but we'll do it like that. That's a good size there. So I'm just clipping to remind myself of where I want to stop my stitches to leave my opening. Since it's such a big area that we have to sew, I think having that little reminder is going to be good. Otherwise, I'll get to sewing it and I'll completely forget and be like, oh, now I need to seam rip. And I don't want to seam rip anymore. So again, 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're just going to go around. You want to make sure that everything is lined up nice and good. Go around the side of the top, making sure the seams line up. just trimming my thread tails now so I don't forget about them, and then checking to make sure my seams are good. Okay, so now we're going to start on the skirt. Okay, and I'm getting my first clip, and I'm just going to sew off so that I've got that space open. Oh, I messed a little bit right here. Let's go back here. Good. Good. Okay. So now I'm going to start at my other clip, making sure to leave that space in there. Turning later. Okay, I'm just making sure my seams line up. So since my bullet has a little bit of stretch to it and my broadcloth doesn't, I just want to make sure that those seams are, everything's lined up perfectly. Or when I go to put it on, it's going to be super uncomfortable because I won't be able, the broadcloth will be wrinkled, or so we just want to make sure it all lines up very nicely. Okay, here's my other seam. Here we go. Oh, that's right. This is the piece that's I had to Frankenstein. So I think it goes here. Actually, it goes to this other one, this lower one. think we're almost there. This is a long one. Okay, make sure these seams line up. Almost done. Then we have to top stitch it. Woo. Sorry, the coat's just kind of piling up. Oh, this is gonna be gorgeous. Oh no, my skirt piece is slightly off. I don't know if I could even call that slightly. That's quite a bit. All right, so let's trim these. Oh, goodness gracious. Here it is. All right, and now we just need to go up the side. I need to look at this because my piece here is slightly off. I think it's okay here. It's just off here, which was probably because I did with my projector, I probably just moved it a little too much, which is okay. So we're gonna line this up here, and then let's see, we just kind of go should be okay going like that. So, might throw things ever so slightly. I don't think so. I think we'll be okay. I'm just trying to make sure that everything's nice and flat so that I'm cutting out the right amount. together on that side. Oh, righty. Now, tails off. Okay. Says. Okay, so we're not going to flip it inside out yet. We need to attach the liner at the sleeves. Whew. This is the part that makes me kind of nervous because you want to make sure you don't twist them. Because if your sleeves get all twisted, it's impossible to get your hand in. Right, so we need to pull the sleeve liner out from the main jacket. Okay, so here's our main jacket here. Let's pull this sleeve out as well. All right, so here's our shoulder. We pulled our sleeve liner out, and we have our sleeve jacket out, the outer out. We're gonna fold the sleeve and sleeve liner in towards each other. So we're gonna kind of fold this in half and fold it like this. So just straight up 90-degree angle. We don't want to twist it or bend it. We just want to fold it right at that 90 degrees with our seam up. Okay, and then the same thing with our other sleeve. We want to make sure it's nice and straight and fold it. So it should be, I don't know if you can see here or not, but both seams are up. The sleeves are straight across. They're not twisted or bent or twisted. Or so fold the bottom raw edge of sleeve liner, wrong sides together, about 1.5 inches. So we're going to fold this over about 1.5 inches. Okay. Then we're going to insert the sleeve liner into the sleeves, right sides together. So just like that. Again, making sure not to twist anything. And then we're going to clip those seams together there. And then just kind of pick it up again. Make sure that the seams are exact opposite each other, that there's no twist in it. I know that seems probably like overkill, but it's very, very important because once you turn it and top stitch it, if you can't get your arm in, you're going to have to seam rip the whole thing to get back into that sleeve. It's not an easy fix. So I really, really recommend double and triple checking that one. Because I made a blazer and then I had to trash the whole thing because I was like, there's no way. I don't want to seam rip it. I don't want to get into it. And I was so bummed. And I don't want that to happen to you. Okay, so I'm just kind of clipping in a couple of places around the sleeve. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to sew around to attach those two together. And then we'll do the same thing to the other sleeve. I'm doing one at a time though, because I need to focus on one thing at a time. So 1/4 inch seam allowance, we're just going to sew around the raw edges. So we had that seam where we had the liner flipped up 1.5 inches towards the wrong side. So now it's kind of set inside our sleeve a little bit. And we're just going to sew around the outside of that using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Making sure not to get any other parts of the sleeves in there while you're sewing. So it's good to just check your machine, make sure the liner's not wrapped up under there, that the outer fabric's not folded up. Okay. So there's our first sleeve. Now we should be able to see that it just connects through without twisting. Okay, so let's do the same thing to the other side now, if I can find the other side. Oh, this thing is massive. All right. Here's the outer, and here is the lining. Okay, move you out of the way. Okay. Make sure it's all straight, not twisted up. I'll fold this in half so that our seam is in the middle, and just fold it right up. And then the same thing with our outer sleeve. Okay, and then we'll fold this in towards wrong sides together, 1.5 inches. And then place them, put the liner inside the outer, match up those seams, and then kind of clip a couple of places along, matching those raw edges together. And then just check to make sure nothing's twisted. They're nice and straight. And then so 1/4 inch seam allowance around attaching those raw edges to each other. This is my serious face when I'm like, okay, concentrate, don't mess up. And then just again, check to make sure that there's a nice straight line. All right, now the sleeve, other sleeve. Okay, now's the big moment. We need to turn it right side out. So we have to find our hole, which might be easier said than done. Probably should have just left the clips in. Here we go. All right, and we're just going to turn it so the right sides are out. Okay. the sleeves. Make sure we can get our arms in and out of it before we close it up. Beautiful. Okay, and the other sleeve. Yay! That was probably the part that, and the button holes are probably the part I'm most anxious about, because this part, the sleeves, I was anxious about because I've done it before and messed it up. The buttonholes I'm anxious about because I've done it before. And my machine has messed them up. My machine and buttonholes, they just don't get along very well. Okay, so now what I want to do is I just want to make sure, I'm going to find my hole again, maybe. Here we go. I want to make sure all these corners are nice and put out so that we don't have any crazy rounded corners in our coat. This is amazing. Do you ever do something and you're just like, wow, I can't believe I finally did it? And then you're like, I don't know why I waited so long. All right. Look how beautiful that is. Okay, so now we need to press around the edges to make sure that they're nice and crisp. And then we're just going to top stitch it closed, make sure we top stitch the bottom part as well. I don't think you make sure. So, okay, let's do this. When you top stitch around this bottom, the opening, if I can find it. So when you top stitch around, when you get to the opening, you want to make sure to fold that these pieces are folded in and line up with the rest of your coat, and then just top stitch that down right. So when you top stitch, you're going to top stitch all the way around this edge. So you're going to just want to make sure that that edge, that the opening is tucked in a quarter inch. And then you're just going to sew along that seam, and that'll close up that opening. I have a feeling this is going to take a while to top stitch, just because we've got to top stitch just like we sewed it closed. We've got to top stitch down one side, around the skirt, up the other side, and then I'm actually going to top stitch, I think, my collar piece here down as well. So a lot of top stitching around. I don't think you want to see it. It's probably going to take a good 30 minutes just to top stitch it, but look at how gorgeous this is. Okay, let me pull this up so I can actually see it on. Okay. Oh my goodness, y'all. It's almost done. I cannot wait. Okay, so we just have to top stitch it and then put our buttons on. We're almost done. Yay! I'm so excited. Okay, so tomorrow we will be putting our buttons and our belt on, and then we will be all done with our Duchess coat. I cannot wait to see yours. I can't wait to see this one done too. So I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.